What's up YouTube, Christo here, and I've got another vinyl collection installment for you. It took a little while longer than I expected, but I'm hoping to get at least 2 more done today. If you're just new, if you didn't see my old vinyl channel, I'm basically going through my record collection from the beginning. I was locked out of my old account. Google, YouTube just would not let me in despite having only a couple hundred subscribers and like a pretty non-controversial topic. I'm pretty much locked out forever. So kind of going back and redoing my record collection with some new stuff thrown in, of course, and some recent hauls. So a couple I want to throw in here. CDs as well. They arrived from Ontario. They're in storage at my parents' place from when I moved out west. Faxed Head, Uncomfortable But Free, really great CD with a compilation of early Faxed Head EPs with a couple unreleased tracks. Yeah, I think there's 2 or 3 unreleased tracks, but this is really cool. One of my most prized CDs. I'm an absolutely huge Faxed Head fan. Kittens, Doberman, Canadian kind of sludge, stoner doom band. This is definitely heavier, a bit slower than Tiger Comet, which is probably their most well-known album, but this is still pretty incredible. J Mascis and the Light, J Mascis and the Fog, More Light. I bought this when I was in Indonesia. I don't know if this is a Filipino pressing. It's got East Asian writing on the back. I don't recall. Oh, Japan. It's a Japanese pressing. Really good J Mascis project that came out when I was living in Indonesia. And an Indonesian copy of Frusciante's incredible To Record Only Water CD that, you know, I actually brought back with me this as well from Indonesia when I lived there. Impossible to find this on vinyl for less than, I don't know, $300-400 last time I looked. A couple new purchases that I don't believe made it into my first kind of reintroduction haul video. Some electronic music that I picked up from someone in Canada domestically. This is Celluloid Mata, and I don't even remember the name of this album, but I remember listening to them back in the, I don't know, late 90s, early 2000s when I was really into electronic music. Dead Voices on Air. This is How Hollow Heart, is it? Yeah, How Hollow Heart. Mark Spivey project, who I know basically from Download and his work with the Skinny Puppy Lads. And Silk Saw, Claudicating. I haven't even listened to these yet. Silk Saw, another band I listened to at the end of the 90s, early 2000s. Electronic, a little more abrasive, I'd say. I don't know, Celluloid Matt is a little more melodic as I recall, but I haven't listened to them in decades. Only 2 new vinyl pickups that I have in person. Destroyer, Street Hawk, A Seduction. One of the earlier, you know, more accessible Destroyer albums. I know little about it. My interest in Destroyer, I admit, is more the last decade or so. And This Night, I think that's a great record. I heard This Night much later after it was released, and that's kind of what got me into them, him, whatever. And Viet Cong. Actually, I didn't even realize Viet Cong from Calgary, just down the road from me. Really great first album by them. They're now known as Preoccupations. Very, very good album. I don't know the Preoccupations era stuff as well, though. Okay, so we're going to be starting with Beat Happening, and we'll see how far we get. I kind of like to keep these around 20 minutes or so, which is what the first one was, 20 minutes-ish. So I'm just going to go through, talk about them, you know, mention anything special, significant about the album or the pressing. Probably Beat Happening's most accessible LP, at least when I bought it, it was Black Candy. Not my favorite Beat Happening record. Definitely, you know, not my favorite by any stretch of the imagination, but still good. Graveyard Digger Blues is a good track. Cast a Shadow, that's a pretty classic song. Not my favorite again. Dreamy, that I had on CD in my haul videos, probably my favorite LP by them. This is a really good band picked compilation. Look Around, named after one of the singles that's on this. This has just got such great tracks on it. Nancy Sin, my favorite beat happening track. Indian Summer, Pine Box Derby, great track. Lots and lots of really good songs on here. Pretty accessible dual LP, greatest hits. The best thing the Birthday Party ever put out. I genuinely love this album, Junkyard. Just such a classic album. It's pretty much got all of my favorite songs on it. Hamlet, 6-Inch Gold Blade, and Junkyard, probably three of like maybe my 5 favorite Birthday Party albums, tracks, sorry. And then like everything else would be like, I don't know, they only really put out 2 albums, I think it is, and a couple EPs if you're not really including the Boys Next Door album that got reissued as a Birthday Party album. But yeah, other than like Mr. Clarinet and what is it, Nick the Stripper, this is pretty much all of my favorite tracks on it. Drastic Plastic reissue from a couple years ago that's on, I don't know, orange and red marble vinyl. Nothing too valuable or rare, but it's a really, really great track, and Drastic Plastic do some really good pressings. Black Air Plague Ritual, this was kind of a gamble. As I've mentioned before, what I'll do is often, if I find something on Discogs that I really like, I'll add a couple extra things, usually for no extra shipping or very low cost of shipping. I'd never heard of them, but they're described as like a noise band. Silk screened kind of cardboard jacket, if you will. And inside there's a poster, which is pretty much just a reprint of the jacket. But the really cool thing about this is, so white labels, 12-inch, single-sided, but it has a really cool silk screening on the other side that's kind of like a, medieval kind of plague-esque, scene or something like that. Pretty cool album. I've not actually put this on my turntable yet. It's dusty, it's used, and my Spin Clean just arrived recently, and I haven't been able to grab distilled water to clean up my dusty records. Blue Cheer, pretty underrated yet little known band who are arguably the first or one of the pioneering metal bands. Their first major record, Vincibus Eruptum. I just pretty much grabbed this because it's an original Canadian pressing. Not my favorite. This is my favorite. Is it Inside Outside? I can never remember how it goes. Outside Inside. And this is the one that has, oh geez, I always forget the name of it as well. Just a Little Bit, I think it's called. I'm not even gonna open it up. But yeah, it's a pretty cool song, and definitely something I would consider, very early or proto-metal. And I believe this is their 3rd album after the previous 2. New and Improved Blue Cheer, which is a much more rock sound, like classic rock sound, and I would definitely say that's my least favorite of the 3, and I know virtually nothing about them after that point. John Spencer's Blues Explosion Orange, I was introduced to them kind of like, I don't know, early high school era, and really, really got into them. This and Extra Width, I believe it is, my friend had and let me borrow, and I really liked them. This has got Bell Bottoms, which is a great track, Bang, which has a really good music video. And yeah, those early John Spencer Blues Explosion albums are just pretty rockin' in general. Kind of a bit of Canadiana. Bob and Doug McKenzie Great White North album. They're from the SCTV sketch series from the, I don't know, 70s into the 80s. What is it? Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas, I believe it is. And I remember my dad watching SCTV all the time when I was a kid, like really young. And I hated it except for Bob and Doug. And they did the Strange Brew movie. And I got into that when I was like an early teen. And then, you know, I picked up a couple, or I was going through my dad's records and found that one, maybe a couple others. I don't really remember. And I found that a couple years ago for like $10. Just kind of a fun, goofy listen. James Brown, Live at the Apollo, die cut, blue vinyl, nothing special. I think James Brown, you know, he's released so many albums, live albums, compilations. Speaking of which, Papa's got a brand new bag. It's good. I kind of overpaid for it. For some reason, like old vintage James Brown records have really high used value, and the new albums, maybe that's why the newer pressings he's putting out are $30-$40 each, which is kind of expensive, and why I only have a couple James Brown records. $1.65, Talkin' Honky Blues, probably one of my least favorite $1.65 albums. It's very, very well polished and has a very distinct country vibe to it, which isn't really my thing. I think $1.65 is probably, if not the best, then definitely one of the best Canadian indie rappers ever. Very interesting kind of stream of conscious rapper from the East Coast in Canada. I think Gord Downie from the Tragically Hip appears on this, which is why this one's, you know, a lot more coveted than other $1.65 records, but I got that used for a very good price. Situation, probably one of his lesser appreciated albums. It's good, it's not great. I kind of put it in the middle. Definitely prefer it to the Talkin' Honky Blues, but still, you know, it's not his best by far. This one definitely more affordable. And $1.65, 20 odd years. Or is this the one? Maybe this is the one that has Gord Downie. I know one of the two that I have here. Yes, this is the one with Gord Downie. So this one is more country. This one is very well polished. I have two $1.65 albums that I love, but neither of them are in Edmonton where I am now. They're at my parents' place. Like the two albums that I like the most, that I have hard copies of, I mean. Now, I'm going to apologize right here because I'm going to fumble big time trying to recall the names of these albums. An artist that I just very by chance became fascinated and obsessed with not too long ago, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm just going to kind of consider these like all one entity, let's say. This is a very bizarre, obscure, ambient, industrial bluegrass band from San Francisco, Carolina. And each album they've done, they basically have a different name that incorporates the name, well, usually as far as I know, incorporates the name Carolina. And this one is, what is this? Rise of the Woodpile, Rise of the Common Woodpile. And pretty much all of the albums are self-made, I assume by someone in the band, probably Grux, who this is considered kind of like his main project. And the reason I kind of found them is because I'm a huge Greg Turkington fan, and you know, Facts Ted I mentioned before, and just kind of, and it's funny because there were Greg Turkington projects that I've known for a decade plus, you know, not even including Facts Ted, and I only realized recently, like 4 or 5 years ago, that he was once in Carolina. I'm Armed with Quarts of Blood. And all of these, again, are handmade, often using like junk and garbage, and they're painted by hand. And these are like paper printouts. And there's like little, just very interesting things. the rear end puppet show. What is it? Rear end hernia puppet show that comes with a box of garbage. I do actually have that, but it's in Ontario and it's just too big and too thick to have sent over. The saber waving. I can't even read what that is, but yeah, another Carolina album. And another. Some of these I've had for years, some of them I just picked up quite recently. One of them I bought I think it was this one that I bought directly from the band on Bandcamp, which is pretty cool. Yeah, this is it, because it came with, it's not even shown on Discogs that it actually comes with a little gatefold, self-made gatefold kind of thing that has a CD in it, which is kind of cool. I've never seen that with the Carolina album. Basically made with a ripped up old record sleeve and then little pictures on the inlay there. More Carolina, and some more Carolina. Very interesting. Like, their music's great. I love them. I'm not like a die-hard fan that you can put the album on in like 2 seconds. I can guess what it is. It's just kind of cool noise. I don't know. Industrial ambient noise, if that makes sense. With bizarre screeching vocals now and again. Yeah, I think I can finish this pile here. Coach Whips, John Dwyer project, most famously known for his work with OCs. The OCs are one of the many variations on the name. It's funny, I started collecting Coach Whips albums when I got really, really into the OCs, maybe back in 2015, 16. And these were super, super cheap, and now a lot of them are just really hard to find. Beautiful, like, rainbow splatter on this. Very fast kind of punk rock garage sound, which is pretty good. I wasn't really into them at first because I was expecting it to sound like OCs, and they don't at all, but now I actually really appreciate, or eventually I really started to appreciate it. I'm not really into, like, you know, punky, fast kind of stuff anymore, but, well, you know, it kind of comes in waves, of course. Bangers versus Fuckers, another Coach Whips. I believe this is a white pressing. Yeah, that's a solid white pressing. And I don't know if all of these are worth much or are very rare, let's say. I don't really care too much about value because I don't really sell or trade my records unless I never listen to them, or I have duplicates. And another Coach Whips. What was this one called? Double Death, with a I don't know, silk screened. Is that silk screened? Maybe not silk screened, but a custom outer vinyl sleeve there, like a thick vinyl sleeve, gatefold. And I know this is, I think, half and half. Yeah, half and half, black and red. I think this came with the DVD as well. Yeah, bonus tour DVD. And the last 4 here, these are kind of special. Actually, they're a little out of order here. Let me rearrange these. There we go. So, actually, you know what? I'm going to do these out of alphabetical order just for the sake of the story here. So when I was in high school, I was introduced to William Burroughs. A very long story, but I'll keep it short. And I read Junkie. That was the first book I read by Burroughs, and I loved it. Just really good, interesting, simple to read story. I kind of knew it wasn't typical for him. But this is like mid-90s when, you know, you couldn't just hop online and download a PDF of all of his books at once kind of thing. And I don't know what I bought next, but I read Naked Lunch next, and it just blew me away. Like, it was hard to read. It was difficult to read for a few reasons. But after I read it once, I pretty much read it immediately again, and just kind of literature changed forever for me. This is just, yeah, excerpts from Naked Lunch and Nova Express. I have read Nova Express a long time ago, amongst several other of his books and short stories. Word Virus is such a great cheap pickup if you can ever find that. And this is a kind of an oddity. Let Me Hang You. This is a William Burroughs reading with King Kong. I don't remember if it's King Kong like as in his band, the Shrines or the Barbecue Show or whatever they were called, or if it's King Kong and a bunch of other musicians. I don't recall, but it's basically William Burroughs reading, obviously not live because he's been dead for decades, but with King Kong and a band playing music in the background with, I don't know, this is called like it's like blood, spit, semen, something or other pressing. I've tried listening to this a couple times, but I just could not get into it for one reason or another, which is ironic because I love King Kong as well. He's great. And yeah, I'm a huge William Burroughs fan, but it's not an easy listen, I must admit. And the ones that I kind of saved for last, I'll do that one second, who changed literature again for me a couple years later. Bukowski reads his poetry. A friend, it's kind of a similar introduction. A friend let me borrow Post Office and I read it, and it just, again, changed literature for me. And I kind of compare it to Junkie because they're both short, simple, easy to read. And then other stuff, not as much Bukowski, other stuff they've done, but, especially Burroughs or especially Bukowski's poetry, is a little more, in-depth, a little more subjective, a little more difficult to read, a little more cerebral, but definitely not, Bukowski never did anything like, the Burroughs cut-up method, nothing like that. But this is still a great record. I've put it on a couple times. I'm usually, ironically, too drunk to really appreciate it. Just a black pressing, nothing too special here. And last one for the video. This came out a couple years ago for Bookstore Day, which is interesting because I didn't know that. I'm not a big reader, I admit, outside of Bukowski and some of the beats. But this was released in select bookstores around, I think, the US. Not many of them made it to Canada, at least as far as I saw. And when this first came out, it was really freaking expensive, both the record and shipping to Canada, of course. And then I very, fortunately decided to wait a couple months. And there was one seller in the US who was selling these for like, I don't know, $25 US plus like a really low shipping amount compared to people that were like charging 60, 70 US plus like 30 US shipping. So I grabbed that. Very glad I did because, yeah, Bukowski is definitely my literary hero with, Mr. Burroughs coming in a close second, I'd say. Anyways, thank you for watching. I'm going to try to get another installment of this out, recorded today and out in the near future. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.